Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to another exciting episode of Stars of Big Sky Country, the series that spotlights those that have had an impact at the high school, collegiate, or professional level right here in the 406. And this is our last episode of 2024. So, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. And I really wanted to close this first part of this new series, the first 6 episodes, out with kind of a message. And the guy that I have as my guest today really does some phenomenal work off the field, and we're going to talk all about that. But he's actually made an impact from outside Montana here in the 406, playing in the Pioneer Baseball League. He is the third baseman from 2 seasons with the Voyagers, one with the Paddleheads. It is Collin Runge. Welcome, man. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I appreciate you having me on, and I'm really excited about this. We got a bit delayed in what we had hoped to be our initial go, so I'm happy to be here now, and I'm really excited about just this opportunity and getting to talk with you. We've known each other for a few years now, so it's going to be good.
Yeah, for those that don't know, when first became a sports reporter in Montana, the first Voyagers game that I went to cover and get highlights, this guy hits a grand slam, and that's how my highlights ended. It was fantastic. Couldn't believe, one, that I caught it on camera, and just the way that you rounded the bases and the fist bumps and high fives. I mean, it was the perfect way to close it out. Great performance by you guys all around. But I was like, if I'm going to catch a grand slam, my first go with Pioneer League Baseball and covering the Voyagers, I might as well just, retire from covering the league for the rest of the season because I don't know if it's going to get any better than that.
Well, it kind of started off the same for me. That was the first swing, the first pitch I saw in 2022 was a grand slam. So I don't know. A lot of the guys were telling me that it's only downhill from there. You're hitting 1,000 with a slugging of 4,000. So it doesn't get much better than that, but it's a good way to start.
Absolutely. I sent you the highlights. Man, it was so great to catch that. And then to get to know you, obviously, after and find out just how great of a person you are, not only in the clubhouse or the dugout or on the field, but off it as well. But before we get to all of that, you're the first guest in the series that I've had that isn't from, born and raised in Montana. However, not that far off. Initially from Oregon. What was growing up in Oregon like for you?
Yeah. So I grew up in Bend, kind of a small town. Redmond is well, back then it was like 25,000 people, maybe. It's grown a lot since then, but being in Oregon, we had that kind of small town feel. Um, I was doing a lot of traveling to play baseball. That was the toughest thing about growing up in a small town and wanting to compete at the higher levels and against as good a competition as I could find. But yeah, being in Oregon, you have all 4 seasons like you do in Montana, and it gets real cold. So training outside is not an option. You got to find a way and you have to be really flexible. I think that is one of the commonalities with being in Montana, being in Oregon that I've seen is you have to be flexible. Like Mother Nature's out there, it's gonna do whatever it wants. So you just have to kind of listen to it and you find a way around it and make sure you get your work done. And that's what I've been able to do, thankfully. But I do see a lot of commonalities and the beauty in both places is phenomenal. But I tell you what, there's a lot of beauty in Montana that I really enjoy, and especially in the mountains. So it's really cool.
Well, we kind of deferred from my normal first couple of questions talking about, not being from Montana. I want to make sure everybody knows that, this is, again, a series about people that have made an impact, whether they're born and raised here or not. But let's go ahead and get back to some of the fun ones. So first thing, since you're a baseball player, I want to know, what is the greatest baseball movie of all time, and why is it The Sandlot?
Oh, yeah, greatest baseball movie of all time. Honestly, Moneyball. And I'm gonna say, and I'm gonna back this up a little bit because I think Moneyball really portrays a lot of what it's like to be in professional baseball. Like it portrays A lot of like the relationships with like the front office and what that looks like, relationships with teammates, interactions in the clubhouse. Like there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that to the casual fan, they're not seeing, maybe outside of, Soto and his recent deal, right? That's all
Yeah.
over the place. But that's just kind of the mainstream stuff, and a lot of those interactions happen behind the scenes. So honestly, Moneyball, I think, is for me the most realistic representation kind of, and I think that really lends itself to being at the top of the list for me.
I'll take that for sure because I have a similar feeling about Draft Day for football movies. I'm like, this is
Mm,
a like I don't
good
even know
one.
if you would call it a football movie because there's almost no football being played in the entire movie, right? And Moneyball, it's kind of
Mhm.
similar. It's all about what's happening behind the scenes and who's doing what and what each person has to handle. But I will say though that I have seen that movie and the one quote and scene that stands out to me above the whole rest of the movie is when the guys that are there that are supposed to be recruiting and scouting, the one guy says, "Yeah, great pitcher, but he's got an ugly girlfriend, so his confidence is low." And I was like, "You can't be serious! Like, is that a real thing?"
I I don't know if that's a real thing, but there's plenty of talk that goes on, like old rumors from like old scouts and stuff like that. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure somebody said that somewhere along the line. But there used to be a lot of like appearance, like does he pass the eye test, that sort
Okay.
of thing. That kind of goes on, like build, like things like that. Like there used to be a lot more of that. Now it's a lot of like analytics and numbers and how does this guy stack up in various ways or statistical evaluations, things like that.
So could be, couldn't be, but if it is, it's not far off or surprising as far as what you believe the actual, discussion may be behind closed doors. So that's some good insight.
Yeah,
Now,
the old school.
yeah, exactly. Now the big question: what's it like to be Colin Runge?
That is a good question. I think well, it's looked a lot different lately. Over the last few months, it's been for those of you that don't know, you probably don't know. I was hit in the head with a line drive on August 20th. I spent a couple of days in the ICU and broke my skull and brain bleed and all sorts of stuff. Lots of well, there were some complications. And this is really my first time speaking in public since the accident. So, speaking was a big part, which is why we were delayed. And that's starting to come back. But all in all, it's very busy. I think I'm pulled in a lot of different directions. Uh, Baseball has been and has been such a pillar in my life for so long. And so I'm just turned 28, so I've been doing this well before I graduated high school, obviously, but post high school, I've been going for 10 years. And um, so that's a big mainstay. A lot of it is, there's a ton of training, there's a lot of dedication and discipline that goes into being the being a professional athlete and making sure you're kind of putting your best foot forward. Um, but on the other side of things, baseball aside, mental health has become like a very central focus in my life. And so I've spent the last 2 years of my professional baseball career as a nationally certified counselor as well. I received my master's in clinical mental health. And so I do a lot of advocacy work outside of, well, especially in baseball, but just in athletics in general. And so I do a lot of that. I'm getting back into working into mental health again. Thank goodness. I'm really excited about that. I'm hoping that comes up soon. In the next month or so, I should be again accepting clients and working. So it's usually very busy. I started a company for the mental health advocacy called Explore the Mind Co. This is one of our shirts, Control the Controllable. That takes a lot of time working with people in the communities. Um, and just making sure what, our mission from a company standpoint is to make sure that mental health is accessible to as many people as possible. And so what we do is we take 10% of every dollar that comes into the company from the entire year, and we donate it to mental health sponsorships that make it so that people who can't afford it, who are looking for treatment, or they need a bridge and maybe they lose their job and they're going through a hardship or something like that where they can't afford it, but they want to continue treatment, we have funds accessible for that. And that's part of what we do in Montana as well. We actually just partnered with Tamarack Grief Resource Center, and they have a very great footprint across the state of Montana to provide mental health services, grief services, things like that. And so we partnered with them, and they'll be receiving some of the donated funds for from 2024. And so all of this has to be packed into a day, a week, a month, on top of recovering from the brain injury. And so it's been very busy, but I'm very thankful that I'm still able to do what I want to do and positively impact lives. I think that's a huge thing for me. I'm kind of tired of the healing process for myself personally because it's been very self-focused. And um I'll say this, like, yes, it's needed, but I'm really excited to get back out into the community, start working with people again. I thoroughly enjoy that, along with hitting baseballs as far as I can. Like, there's there's just nothing better than that. So, yeah, life is calling, is busy, but it's really fun and I really like it. It keeps me going.
Well, that was one question that turned into several answers for other questions I had. So that's awesome, man. I'm glad that you're back to being busy. And yes, of course. I mean, when that happened, you were like one of the first names that I had as far as my bullpen, so to speak, of like who do I want to be on the show. And you're like, let's just hold off. And I was like, dude, take all the time you need. Like it's crazy, how quickly life can change. One thing that I was curious about, if you're comfortable sharing the experience, is people that have these not necessarily near death, but just like very life kind of moments where it's just like, oh, that kind of oh moment with things that they love. Example, my dad loves the outdoors, loves fishing, loves hunting. He was shot hunting one time. Now it was a shotgun with bird shot, but I mean it's one of those things where you kind of look at the person and be like, okay, well, like, are you gonna go hunting again? And my dad is so
Mhm.
passionate about it. He's just like, oh yeah, absolutely. Like that's one of the things that can happen. Did you have kind of a similar experience with your incident, or what was that whole thing like?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think from the injury standpoint, it was very much it could have gone a lot worse than it did. So I'm thankful that didn't occur. Um, and that I was able to live through the experience. I think there's something to be said for that, and I'm very thankful for that. Um, and as far as the baseball piece is concerned, you kind of you go about your career and your day-to-day life as thoroughly as you can. And we also know, like, I've been very aware that something can happen, health-wise, that can end your career very quickly. And so I always try to approach my career as um, I never want to take it for granted. And I think that's been my approach, especially as a professional. I think it's younger athletes, I think that's a much harder concept to grasp. But as a professional, I've very much made that a point to push that, never take it for granted, um, and try to do and enjoy as much as I can while I'm doing it. Um, but I haven't been on a baseball field since it happened. I haven't been back. I haven't hit, thrown, like, not really anyway, not in any sort of competitive atmosphere. Um, But I think something like that really makes you evaluate kind of where you're at and what the priorities are and what's most important. Because at the end of the day, I love baseball. And it's brought me so many wonderful things. It's brought me literally right here talking to you in this moment. And you know, I don't know if I'm gonna try to come back or not. I haven't really decided, but I think moving forward, no matter what happens, my message regarding this incident is going to be based in resilience. And how can we cultivate resilience? And how do we make sure that we're ready if and when something happens? Life is full of ups and downs. It has lots of different obstacles, and it truly is, one matter of fact of life is there will be suffering somewhere. And so when that does occur, how can we be the most prepared for it? And I think that that's the biggest thing for me coming out of this and moving forward, and as it blends in with the mental health aspect and approach that I have. I think all in all, it kind of brings it all together so that that's going to be, I think, the biggest takeaway outside of like the more existential pieces for myself. Um, but yeah, resilience, how to build that, how to maintain that, and make sure, we're staying present. And that's a huge thing, gratitude, not taking things for granted, being in the moment, all that sort of stuff is very much connected to all of this.
This episode of Stars of Big Sky Country is brought to you by Russell Country Federal Credit Union, where they believe in helping you and your children achieve financial success while building a better community. They want to be your financial home, so stop in at their Great Falls or Fairfield office and get started on your new account today. I love that you seem to find the silver lining in just about anything because, like I said, it can be one of those moments that you kind of reach, that metaphorical fork in the road, and it's like you can either choose to go this way or this way. And obviously, my dad was just like, that's just something that can happen. Me and a buddy pheasant hunting, and that's just what happens.
Mhm.
You want to practice good hunter safety and all that. And I know that for me there hasn't been moments to that extreme, but I know that what you're passionate about can really have sort of the deciding factor as far as if there's a moment like that or an accident or something that happens as far as what you choose to do with it. Because 2020, I lost the job that we had relocated for, and it was to be a director of communications for a sports team. And so that was devastating. And so I ended up getting this job delivering car parts from a Ford dealership to all the local mom and pop shops in the area. And I got into an accident one time. I got ran off the highway, and it was a very scary moment. Nothing serious at all. Like the car didn't flip or anything, but it's like, if I would have died in that situation, it's much different than if you die, me driving the news car to go and cover a football game. It's like you're putting yourself at risk for something that you love, and I think there's a part of you that has to, in the back of your mind, understand that it's worth whatever the risk, and you just hope you never have to see that day or cross that bridge. But thankfully, you have, and it looks like things are not necessarily better for it, but there's obviously been a lesson there that you've learned, and I think that's fantastic. And obviously, part of something that you do, which my next question was, being a professional baseball player in the Pioneer League, 2 years with the Voyagers, one with the Paddleheads. You and your, men's mental health awareness and the company that you contribute to. I've seen the clips on your Instagram. Did you plan on using baseball as a platform for that, or did it just kind of become that with the guys in the clubhouse and just kind of how you sit down? Maybe fellowship is like the right word, how that can kind of blossom into something great
Yeah.
unexpectedly.
Yeah, no, that was never the intention. That's kind of the beautiful part about it is when I set out to start the company, um, the the mainstay of the mission itself was, how can we impact lives in a positive manner? Um, I didn't know who exactly I was gonna sell to, but I had the idea, and that was, enough for me to jump in, and the reason I did it was because I was actually pursuing the baseball career longer. I had signed my contract, I had done the things that were required of me in that sense, but I wasn't gonna be able to work in the mental health space, and that for me, it's like I said earlier, it's something that I really enjoy, and so I wanted to continue to try to help however I could. And at the time, that was going to be a monetary, in some fashion, find a way to monetarily contribute there. So it was never supposed to be, all my teammates and everybody kind of jumping on board with the message and the mission of what we were trying to accomplish. But I think what ended up happening, I'm so thankful for all of my teammates, and whether it was in Great Falls, whether it was in Missoula, um, and the continued outreach, not just within the clubhouse, but within the Pioneer League and into other leagues. And um, it was never supposed to be that, but it ended up being, garnering so much support from within our clubhouses and things like that, that it kind of took on a life of its own. And, we've got Explore the Mind shirts across the country. So that's been really amazing. And the support from the Montana community at large is a major reason why we wanted to get involved and contribute, um, part of this year's um, donation to the state of Montana and making sure we're impacting people in the Montana community as well. That's been a huge thing. And so, yeah, it was so much more simple than just, than what it ended up being. And that's incredible. And I'm very grateful for all of the people who have stepped up and who have contributed in any way to this mission and what we're trying to accomplish.
That's great to hear, man. Like I love stories like that. I love how it's just like it was never supposed to get like that, and then it just got crazy. I think that speaks to the power of fellowship, community. I mean, whatever you want to call it, but clearly you've been a part of all those different names for it, and had and left an impact everywhere that you've gone. So switching gears now to some of the more fun questions, people are going to want to know. Okay, so this guy's not from Montana, Pacific Northwest area, not that far, but still, how did Montana shape you into the person or athlete that you are and were?
It's interesting. I've played well, almost my entire professional career has been spent in Montana. And so, and I love it. I love Montana. And I'll say this because there's people from Montana that are gonna probably be like, well, he hasn't experienced a winter in Montana. That's fair, that I can't argue with that. So I do understand that part. When it does get cold, it gets really cold. So that would be a fair counter argument. But I think for me, being in Montana, having that Montana still very much has like the small town feel, kind of like where I grew up. And so being accepted by the community, finding friends, um, and this could be like my host families have been absolutely wonderful. Like I still talk with people from Montana almost weekly for sure. Um, and it's day to day. And so I think the people that I've met, how I've been welcomed and accepted into the community has been, honestly, that's way more than you can ever ask for. You're there when you're there to work and to play, and to try to put on a show for people, and that's shoot. I mean, if they go out of their way to make sure you're getting fed and you're taken care of, like you become family. And so I think Montana as a whole has really broadened my horizons. Um, and the people that I've met have been absolutely wonderful. And honestly, truly, I want to say this because the people of Montana really showed up when I got hurt. Um, and and they were absolutely phenomenal, across the board, from Missoula to Great Falls, even down to Billings, Kalispell, like everybody that had an organization in the state of Montana was sending me messages. There's been a lot of support from the state of Montana, and I'm beyond thankful for that. And like I said, like there's a lot of people in Montana that I consider to be family, and will continue to do so for the very long future. So just the relationships and the people.
That's so awesome, man. I love that. And yeah, heard similar stories. The guys that play arena and indoor football with the host families, and just it's like they weren't expecting extended family or longtime friends, but yet that's what they ended up, getting from that experience. What would you say? And I love so much. I got to say this. The whole thing about you haven't experienced a winter. So many people, the only thing that they know of Montana is the show Yellowstone, right? And I remember when my
Yeah.
wife and I started to binge watch it, I like a season in, I was just like, well, you can certainly tell that this is a fiction, or a drama series. And she's like, why? I was like, because we haven't seen a single winter episode yet. And she's like, well, yeah, it's too damn cold to do that. Like, they're not about that nonsense. I was like, nope. So, what did you know about Montana before you got here and played here? And what would you say was the lasting impression that you got, when you wrapped up things with Missoula?
Well, the fishing goes a long ways.
Yeah.
The word about fishing, it being like a blue chip fishing state, like one of the best places in the world to fish. So I was prepared for that. I made sure that I learned how to fly fish. I was ready to go. Um, and so that was the biggest thing. Like I was like, all right, that's the one thing I know for sure. I know it's wild. There's a lot of wilderness. Obviously, like Glacier National Park, all that. So I hit Glacier National Park when I first moved out to Montana, but it was in the winter, and well, it was like end of winter, May, early May, into April. So it was cold, but not for the people,
Not cold snap
And
cold.
so, yeah. So I'm not going to pretend like I know. Um, but no, yeah, honestly, all of all of it was pretty much based on fishing, and I knew it was wild and it was very outdoorsy. And I love the outdoors. So that was like great, great for me. And I consider, honestly, if I'm being super honest, I definitely consider Montana to be my second home. It's the state that I've spent the most time in outside of my home state. And I just love it. I'm being honest. Like I just love that it's kind of a slower paced lifestyle. The people are very like just welcoming, and um, I don't know. I just like it's got a special place in my heart. It really truly does. And I don't know. It's when I left, obviously it was way different than just fishing. But I knew that there was going to be some amazing sights. And I will say this though, when I moved out to Montana, I didn't realize it was like you take the mountains in Oregon and then you just like blow them up like
Yeah,
tenfold. Okay.
right?
And I wasn't really ready for that. I was driving with my brother and I'm like, this is amazing. And so that never gets old. I love that. It's a good perspective piece. So, yeah, that was a shocking one as I was driving into Montana for the first time.
Well, and you playing baseball, I mean, you think about the professional level, Major League Baseball, and how, okay, so you can be on a team and you can go play in Seattle and have the backdrop of Mount Rainier there. You can go play in New York and have the backdrop of the downtown New York City skyline. You can go and play in San Francisco and have the backdrop of like the Golden Gate and Bay Area. But I mean, being in Montana, like for a minor league system, you guys were playing at places that had nothing but gorgeous backdrops, I imagine, like from,
Oh yeah.
Kalispell to Ogden to all those places. So it's almost like, yeah, I don't care where we play. It's going to be gorgeous no matter what.
Spoiled. We're all spoiled. And we take a bus.
Yeah,
So
and you
like
take a
if we're
bus.
traveling in the middle, if we're traveling during the day, like we're gonna see everything. Yeah, no, spoiled. Like do you really want to go play in the city? Like, no, not really. Probably. Like the backdrops in the Pioneer League are top notch.
So for me, being from Spokane, we knew all about Montana. It was like, oh, it's Post Falls, Coeur d'Alene, just cranked up to 11. I mean, just think bigger mountains, clearer streams, all that good stuff. And so I remember the first couple of years, we will have been here for 3 years this March. And the first year, there was a lot of moments where I was like, that must be a Montana thing. And then now you look back at the last year, and I've had moments where my wife has said, "Your Montana is showing." So, for you being from Oregon, what were some differences where you were like, "That's got to be a Montana thing"? And then what was the most Montana thing that you ended up doing while you were here?
Well, I can tell you what the most Montana thing that well, I still do it. I still have it. I carry bear spray everywhere.
That's
Like
amazing.
when we have to, we're going fishing, we got a couple of guys we're headed out, and it's like, well, like, we're not going anywhere close. That's gonna, so you got to take the bear spray. Um, and so yeah, it's still in my truck. I mean, so not that I need it in Oregon, but I guess yeah, you had to keep that all the time. You're going out, you just didn't know. You didn't want to have to use it either. That was the other thing. But you had it just in case. So that's probably the most Montana thing. The most shocking one maybe was the amount of casinos in the state of
Yeah.
Montana. That's
Yeah.
like, when you're traveling around, that's not like super normal. Like
Mm-mm.
in Oregon, we have like the state lottery and they're like very designated
Yeah,
places,
yeah,
but
for sure.
Montana, it's everywhere, and you can do what like you wherever. So, yeah, so that I think that the first time I came to Montana, yeah, that was crazy.
For me, it was because my wife didn't move up here with me. I came up 6 weeks before trying to lock down housing and get started on the job. We still had a month left on the lease of where we were living, and so I'm trying to describe what Great Falls is to her in terms that she's going to understand. And so I'm like, they've got one Target, they've got a Shields, two Walmarts, two Albertsons, and then they have seven different taxidermy and meat processing places. And she goes, "What?" And I said, "Babe, that's the one way that you're going to understand this." And so I think for me, yeah, casinos and taxidermies were both to the point that my wife started to make the joke whenever we drive around, and she'd be like, "So, have you thought of any new places to eat?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, there's such and such." And she's like, "And casino?" And I was like, "Yeah, and casino," because that's what everything is. It's this and
Yeah.
casino. So no, that's a great observation there. Baseball wise, what was the weirdest walkout song you ever heard for somebody? For the Voyagers, my wife and I heard
Ooh.
somebody walk out to Stacy's mom, and we were like, "That is amazing."
That
So that,
was, yeah, Jake. Yeah.
yeah, Jake,
No, yes, that's Jake. Yeah, honestly, that was the one that came to mind when you
really.
asked me the question. Yeah, but I was gonna think about it a little bit more. But sorry, Jake. Yeah, that one. The people loved it though. I will say, in Great Falls, I mean, they were singing and they would clap every single time. So it was a big hit.
What's the most memorable thing from your time with the Voyagers at a home game?
Oh, easy one. 4th of July, we got rained out in 2022.
I think I know the story.
And so instead of doing, well, we were sold out. And so we're like, what the heck? So I think we ended up doing a home run derby, but there was a tarp slide.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, it
yes.
is.
There was a bunch of like shirtless tarp slides, including our manager at the time, Tommy Thompson. And
Merman
and that
Tommy.
went over, yeah, yeah, that went over very well. Like Tommy got out there and slid on the tarp and everybody had a good chuckle about it. So That's got to be probably, one of the ones that sticks out as far as it wasn't every day that we were park sliding around and, you know, there was fireworks and all sorts of stuff going on. But yeah, that was that that one sticks out.
Did anyone you played with have a, I'm not going to ask you to call out messiest locker, but did anybody have like a Serrano from Major League, like a Jobu setup, like a shrine to help them hit curveball?
I, I've never seen a shrine. Um, but yeah, lockers, they vary widely. Some
Yeah.
guys are very precise and neat, and the bats have to be a certain way, and everything's very tidy. There's some other guys maybe not. You know, maybe it's the exact opposite. But I've never seen a shrine. But if I did, I would definitely call them out for sure. That's hilarious, I think.
Mike Deeb and Nick Emanuel, messy or tidy lockers?
Well, Nick's is messy. He gets the award for the messiest, I think. Yeah, no. Deeb, he always had all sorts of stuff. He had his roller and his foot pad, and but he didn't put it in a bag. He just liked to carry it around. I don't know if that changed with the bananas or not. So maybe not. Um, but he always carried it. But it was, he had it.
Yeah.
Nick stuff just everywhere. Yeah. Sorry, Nick.
All right, man. Well, that is our time. One more thing that I will ask of you, since it is the last episode of the 2024 calendar year, we're going to come back in 2025, probably not the first, that's when the next episode's supposed to be, but probably the week after. Let everybody get integrated fully into the year. And we're going to start off with another great lineup of guests. And so with the holiday season and the time of cheer and giving and seeing the true meaning of certain things, like leave us with a quote or a message. I know you've probably got plenty, but I know that you are going to be a perfect choice to close out this episode and this year on Stars of Big Sky Country.
I'll leave everybody with this. I keep one quote in my office when I'm working with clients, and it says, "Feelings buried alive never die." And so for the people out there that are going through a tough time, um, there's so many options, and there's so many people that want to help, and facing it head on is going to get you through. There's a lot of things that are going to help get you through, but facing it will help get you through and onto the other side where you can, you know, build a new life, a new approach, and everything in between. So, um, yeah, feelings buried alive never die. And I just want to say thank you for having me on, and bringing me on and closing the year with you. I think it's a bit of a poetic ending for me, getting to be here at the end of the year, given everything that's gone on too. So I just want to say thank you so much. Congrats on your 500th episode recently on the Fan Show, and hopefully we'll get to do it again.
Yeah, dude, this is not the last time that you and I have talked in this capacity. I cannot thank you enough. I'm honored, truly, that this has been your first appearance in this capacity since the incident. Really means the world to me. I'm glad I can have a platform of some kind to give you guys with a message and anybody a chance to share their story. You've got a great one. It's being written as we speak, and I wish you, a continued recovery, however many more steps you have left in that. But I hope it wasn't the last time that we saw you step out onto a baseball diamond. But I do understand if that is kind of where the journey ends. I don't think anybody would think any less of you. But the world of pioneer baseball here in the great state of Montana will be a little less exciting without Collin Runge rounding the bases. But in true baseball fashion, man, you brought it home on our sixth episode, closing out the year. control the controllable. We will drop the link for Collin's business in the comments with this episode. So go and support what is a great cause. And thank you so much for all you do for mental health and just the advocacy and awareness, man. It's truly beneficial to a lot of people, even if they don't come out and say it like this.
Thank you so much again.
All right, guys. Well, that will do it for really an emotional, heartfelt, fun, everything you could ask for episode as we close out 2024. So, again, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. We're going to have a whole new lineup of special guests and great episodes coming your way 2025. So, until then, remember, leave milk and cookies out for Santa. Don't be a Grinch, and no peeking in the presents until the morning of Christmas. So until next time, for Collin Runge, I'm the team man, Richard Teeman, and you can catch us among the stars of Big Sky Country. We'll see you next time.